So where are you coming to us from?
Man, Brentwood, California.
Nice, nice. So I've seen you actually in the industry for a long, long time. You're definitely a veteran. Tell us a little bit about how you got in the industry and how you first kind of like got on the scene.
Yeah, initially it goes way back to when I was a kid. I didn't have a dad growing up. And so my mom got me a big brother from the Big Brothers program when I was 11 years old. And she's like, you got to have a male role model in your life. And she was single. We're always moving around. And then from there, when I turned 12, he got me a gym membership. And I fell in love with working out. And it just became my passion. And he got me some personal trainer lessons. And then from there, I just continued to grow and blossom and get motivated. And I never stopped working out. And then back in 1999 is when I first started doing personal training. So I went with 24-hour fitness, and within I think 3 months, I set a whole new record at the gym that I was at. And then I started managing a lot of their big locations in San Diego. Went into some other gym chains like Gold's Gym, In Shape Health Clubs, and really started to do some really cool things. 17 years ago now, I started to do online training as well. And it all kind of stemmed from growing, helping a lot of people. I used to get in, I did my first big shoot with Bill Comstock. And you
Mm,
guys remember Bill Comstock inside, and he was with Muscular Development at the time. And the shoot went really, really well, got some publicity in a lot of magazines. And then I got picked up by a big supplement company,
mm,
and was with them for 12 years. And it was like,
mm,
one of the top supplement companies.
mm,
And so, yeah, it blasted me off. And then and there was a point where I was, in, all the ads for all the different magazines. And then I did a lot of spreads. I did a really cool spread with Alex Ardenti. And we got 2 covers from that one spread, from that one
mm,
shoot, and a
mm,
ton of different, other, ads and other kind of things that went in. I got the cover of Muscle Mag twice on that particular shoot. And, from
mm,
there, it just continued to blossom, and, with the sponsorships and so forth, I was going to all the big events. So the Olympias, the Arnold Classics, the LA Fit Expos. And then I just got super deep and I started competing, had a really good time competing, got my pro card back in 2015, but I've been competing since 2002 was my first show. So I competed for a long time before I turned pro. So
mm,
yeah, I mean, there's a lot of good things to go into, which came about it. And it
mm.
brought me to the place that I am now, which I'm super, super grateful for.
Nice. So now, right now, you're coaching people. Obviously, you've got a few people. Do you have anybody that's, say, up and coming for the Olympia or for the Arnolds, or give us some insight on that?
Yeah, what I do now primarily is I actually coach the coaches. So I help trainers build their business online. So I don't do as much of the actual online training myself anymore. I did that for many, many years.
Mm,
Now, obviously, online is definitely the way to go. It's nice to have that in-person feeling, but
mm,
online is what's going to give you a lot more flexibility, a lot more freedom,
mm,
financial freedom, location freedom, time freedom, and so forth. And so I help trainers kind of build that whole freedom process. So everything from the lead gen to the sales to building out the delivery and being able to scale their businesses. So my main focus isn't so much like helping competitors anymore. And even though I still have some like clients that have been with me like 14 years, but,
mm,
and I'll be with me for a long time. But
mm.
besides that, my main focus is really helping trainers grow their business.
And since you started till now with your training and nutrition, what are you doing a lot different now? Like, what's your that when you look back and you see what you're doing now? Give us some insight on that.
Yeah. With me, it's been one of those things like, what can I do that's going to be sustainable, right? There's so many, people that come into the industry and they bounce out because they go like 100 miles an hour and then they burn themselves out, whether it's training, whether it's nutrition, whether it's supplements, whatever it is. And so what I like to do is create something that's going to be sustainable long term. So, you know, um, for a while I was trying to do, 3 workouts a day and like literally crush myself. And that's not sustainable, right? 3 to 4 workouts a day and do it 6 days a week. And you live in the gym and in there too. So now what I do is I do a much more kind of like, foundational approach with going to the gym every day. And I still train jujitsu every day as well. So I started to incorporate jujitsu for a little bit more the cardiovascular. So instead of having to get on a treadmill or elliptical or something like that, now I get to choke people and
Mhm.
have fun with that. So doing that every single day along with the weight training, but then the supplements, I try to keep it foundational.
Mm,
So
mm,
obviously, having the whey isolates and, having the multis and the fish oils and, the milk thistles and, just all the foundational pieces in there. And then, if I'm going to go through, some sort of a bulking phase, if I want to, put on muscle phase or something, then, things will shift a little bit towards that along with the calories. And same thing too, if I really want to kind of shred down. I haven't had any photo shoots lately, but in the past when I would do, you would really tighten things up in there too. And I saw on your IG this Oreo cookie dessert recipe that just looked incredible. So I want to try something like that. I really love making the healthy cooking and taking the proteins and those kind of things, and then putting it into something that can be like a treat, so forth. So
can you give us some insight in terms of what your diet looks like on say a daily basis, in terms of your fat carb ratio, how you kind of stay tight, and what you would recommend for, say, the average Joe?
Yeah, absolutely. So right now, believe it or not, I'm 50 years old. So,
wow, you look great for 50.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So I still try to keep single digit, body fat in there too, and it's all sustainable. So first thing in the morning, I love to have a fast acting protein. So a whey protein isolate or a hydroxylate, something that's going to a little bit break the fast as possible. That's going to be my go-to. And then I'm going to get, some sort of a complex carb with that. So whether that's steel cut oats, whether that's oat bran, Ezekiel toast, something like that, where it's going to give me some sustained energy throughout the day. And typically every 3 hours, what I'm doing is I'm refueling my body with something that's going to be sustainable. So I try to get about 40 grams of protein in with each one of my meals. Okay. The carbs, what I do is I like to have it a little bit more moderate throughout the day. Pre and post workout are going to be my 2 times when I kind of bump the carbs up a little bit more, right? So, make sure that my muscles are, filled up with glycogen before I train, and then immediately post workout, replenish the glycogen, and then, have the fast acting protein, and then I'll throw glutamine, creatine, those kind of things in immediately post workout. And then throughout the day, it's going to be, smaller. And what I do is I taper my carbohydrates down towards the later portion of the day. So instead of having, carb rich foods like, the quinoas or the brown rice or whatever, those things that I'll have kind of earlier in the day, I'll taper those down and go a little bit more veg based. So everything from, your broccolis, your spinaches, all those kind of things in there too. And, after a while, you start to really appreciate that. The foods in there. And I remember I used to hate broccoli, and now I get to a point where it's oh my God, it's just, if you cook it right, in an air fryer or something like that, you put some good seasoning, a little bit of olive oil on there, it's freaking incredible. It can be, right? That's if you're used to eating clean. As soon as you start eating junk food, then it kind of you start to crave, the sugars and those things. So if you keep the sugars out as much as possible, it tapers it down. I like to have a moderately high protein intake. So it's a little bit more 40 to 45% of my calories are going to be, coming from the protein. Carbs are usually going to be, 40-ish. And then my fats will be right around 20. So a 40-40-20 is going to be typical for me. Unless I have a super crazy day with, jiu-jitsu and training, then my carbs will kind of bump up a little bit. And usually my protein is going to be pretty consistent, but my carbs, if my carbs increase, then what I do is I taper down my fat slightly. And then if I'm going to be a little bit more sedentary or on a weekend or something, vice versa, I'll taper down the carbs, and then I'll just increase the healthy fats a little bit in there too.
So what are your thoughts about people that are fasting on a daily basis? Fasting is a big thing right now. Say, do you do any fasting? Can you give us some insight?
Yeah, personally, I don't fast. It's just because I like to eat too much. But if I have to fast, then, it can be helpful. And I know that especially if you are working with somebody with obesity, and there's some crazy good benefits, with intermittent fasting and so forth, with blood sugar regulation and, helping out with a lot of the hormones and so forth. But for me, it's just after 4 hours, if I haven't eaten, I start to get where I see stars, just because I'm so used to training like that. And that goes from my competition prep, I think, from back in the day, and I've just trained my body for that. But overall, I do see a lot of benefits from people that do fasting. But if you're trying to maximize your muscle tissue, literally just put on as much muscle, if you're in a hardcore hypertrophy phase, if you are training for shows, those kind of things in there too, where you need every ounce of muscle, then I typically like to have the clients where they're having the protein a little bit more frequent than just going too far, throughout the day with that.
Mm-hmm. Do you have do you have a number in mind, or like some people do like 1 pound of protein per body weight, right? Do you have something in
Mm-hmm.
mind every day when you go into your meal plan that you're kind of shooting for?
Yeah, I like to go just slightly over a pound personally for me in
Mm,
there. I've tried to taper down a little bit because you know how you hear like too much protein is going to be acidic to your blood and all that kind of stuff.
mm,
And so I tried dropping it down and I felt weak. I don't know if
mm,
it was something that was mental or whether it wasn't mental, but I
mm,
felt like, oh man. And I noticed over time, if I tried to do that too much, like if I drop down to like a half to 3/4 pound per gram of body weight, then I noticed that I started to like just feel a bit weaker. I feel
mm,
my strength is right between 1 and 1/4 of per grams of per pound of body weight, and that's where like my body feels really good. But also like if my carbs are a little bit lower because protein um, or carbs are protein sparing, right? So if you have a good amount of carbs in your diet, then you can cut back on your protein intake a little bit and you'll be fine because it does kind of spare that the protein levels. But if you're like tightening up, if you're really trying to drop some extra body fat and you're cutting the carbs down a little bit in there too, then I like to just keep it up just a little bit higher personally for myself.
mm,
But um, for clients, you got to kind of like, especially lifestyle clients, they don't need that much, right? Because they're,
mm,
maybe working out 3 times a week, and you're getting them off the couch primarily. So then it's going to be a whole different ball game. Then it would be like maybe zero point 0.6 to zero point 0.8 grams per pound of body weight. But for somebody who's
mm.
super active, who has a lot of muscle, then you might want to bump it up a little bit.
So, being 50, looking as good as you do, you must have some secrets with the recovery. Are you doing ice baths? Are you doing cryo? Give us some insight on how you're staying so fit, vibrant, at 50 years old, still looking great. What's the secret to recovery?
Man, I think the habit for me has been consistency where I don't stop. It's like brushing my teeth every single day. It's like I work out and that's kind of my jam. And then
Mm,
also making sure that, you're eating enough fat in your diet because sometimes people are like, they think fats are bad for you. Yeah, if you have too much of the wrong type of fats, just like anything could be bad for you. But keeping the fats, inside, I think inside your diet actually help with your skin, helps out with your hormone regulation, helps out with your nails, all those kind of things in there. So I think because I keep my fat intake in there, I'm not scared of fats. Like I literally, I have plenty of those every single day. That helps out as well. As far as other things, I take green supplements every single day too. So I'm constantly getting greens inside my diet. The training, getting enough sleep too, stress.
mm,
So I always keep my stress levels down.
mm,
Sometimes I do some guided meditations, just like it, not so much where I'm like on a yoga mat doing anything like that, but I'll have some guided meditations or taking my dog for a walk, like on stressful days, and I just kind of like breathe and I let things go. If you hold on to things that you're upset about, and like let's just say somebody pissed you off at work and you're going around and you're just telling everybody about it, you're just letting it amp up, like
mm,
those type of things will affect you, like your
mm,
stress hormones, your cortisol levels, all those things shoot up. Those things will age you. So
mm.
if you don't, if you don't do something that's going to get rid of that stress, then start to do something like that. And that's why being able to do jujitsu and the weight training and those kind of things in there too is super helpful. But also getting enough antioxidants in your diet or through supplementation is going to be really, really important as well.
What are your thoughts about peptides right now? Peptides is a big, talking point these days. A lot of people are on peptides. What are your
Yeah.
thoughts?
Yeah, peptides is huge. And I mean, we don't know for sure like the long-term effects just because I don't think there's been quite enough studies that have been super long-term. But according to what's been going out now, there's been some very, very effective evidence. Like right now, I just had knee surgery not too long ago,
Mm.
and I had some bone grafting done because I tore my ACL for the third time, and I'm gonna
Wow.
have another ACL surgery done.
Mm,
And I started taking BPC 157 and TB 500.
mm,
And as soon as I started taking those supplements, I felt like my healing process just started speeding up faster.
mm,
So I think, yeah, there's a ton of different supplements out there. As long as hey, long term, this hasn't been studied quite long enough where we can know the true factor. But if you go in and you just use the right type of dosing, you get help and things in there too. I think there's going to be a lot of potential for benefits in there. And that, I think peptides, to be honest with you, are going to be one of those things that's going to just continue to freaking climb. Peptides are hot right now. Everybody is talking about peptides. More and more people are getting on peptides. I get hit up every single day by different people trying to do peptide collaborations and so forth. Those are really, really becoming hot. So, but if you haven't tried it, for sure, do your research first.
Yeah, like myself, I mean, I'm interested definitely in the BC, I think it's called BC 157 or whatever you call it, but that
BPC.
I've read a lot of good stuff on that. I mean, for most people that are looking to, go do a peptide, like where would you suggest that they go? Like, obviously there's different clinics and stuff like that, but do you have a source that you think is a trusted source and somewhere that you would suggest?
Yeah, so there's going to be a few different ones. Like I know the owners at Regenerative Health. It's in Los Angeles, so it's a legit company. That's where I've been getting my supplements and so forth, or my peptides in there too. There's also a ton of different sites, but you have to be careful because some of those sites are not going to be legit. Like I know Regenerative Health is, but there's plenty of others too. Like there's another guy that has been talking to me about all the research backed and so forth. So make sure you do your research, make sure that they have all the backing and all the studies and all those kind of things in there too. And obviously you're going to do your homework before you do anything. I would always, I'm going to just say this to consult with your physician first before you do anything. And I'm not telling you to do any type of peptide, but if you are, then you're going to want to go with a reputable company that's out there. And there's a lot of good companies out there now, but there's also they're popping up like crazy. But if you just Google peptides, you'll see 100 different ones online right now.
What do you know now that you wish you would have known earlier in your career?
Would it be regarding
Health, fitness, just something that you've recently, maybe in the last 2 years, 3 years, started doing, that had you had known this earlier on when you were training and this and that, it would have been very beneficial. Is there anything like that comes to mind?
The mobility has been the biggest game changer for me. And people be like, mobility? Yes. I didn't used to do a lot of mobility. I used to just freaking go to the gym. I'd hit it. I'd do 2 sets of warm up on each extra, before I train a body part. And I would think, okay, that's my warm up. And what I started to do is I started to have a little bit of, ailments or impingements or different things in there too. And what I started to do is work on all different types of mobility work. So whether you're stretching out your chest, your shoulders, your back, I do full body mobility movements for a good 10 minutes solid before I do any workout anymore. And my strength has improved, my energy, my flow, my injuries have gone down, my knee injuries from jiu-jitsu, not that, but everything comes into play. And then I have a better range of motion than I would say 95% of the people that I roll with now. It's just because I work on the mobility. And then even doing things like hanging up from a pull-up bar and stretching out your lats and pulling everything in, my range of motion is better than it's ever been in my life, which is insane. I can literally reach down and touch my nose to my knee, just by going down. And for, a bodybuilder, not a lot of us can have a lot of the flexibility. So I would say the mobility is going to be key, but then also making sure that and this is something that I learned over the time, is the nutritional consistency, right? Just like we would tell any of our clients that are doing any type of a program. If you do something short term and you can't sustain it for long term, then you have to think, is this going to be something, that I want to do? Putting a foundational layer to your training and doing macro cycles and micro cycles for your training is going to be key. The same thing can go with your nutrition. So trying different things and seeing what your body likes the most. Too many people will just read an influencer's diet and be like, okay, well, I'm only going to, eat like this because that's what they do. And they may have a great physique and it may work for them, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work for you. So I would say a little bit of trial and error, work with your carbs, work with your proteins, work with your fats, and seeing how your body responds. I noticed that if I have too many carbs, I get tired and it makes me my eyes almost get hazy and those kind of things. I do better when I have a high protein intake, I keep my fats moderate, and then, you know, obviously my carbs are more based around my training, and that's, you know, what works really well for me. But I've had other clients that I've done that same thing with, and if you have a super fast metabolism, you're gonna burn through that, and you're gonna start to lose like weight too fast or muscle too fast. So you got to like bump up your carbs. Same thing if you're naturally an endomorph, right? If you naturally have a hard time losing weight, then you may have to go much lower in your carbohydrate intake and have like a higher protein and higher fat content. And that's what I noticed works, you know, better for those type. If you have kind of like that mesomorph, which is kind of like where you can put on muscle, but you can also lose weight pretty quick. That's where I noticed kind of like that balanced approach works really well. So finding out what works for you, not being scared to like, you know, try it, you know, for a couple months and not just do it for like a week in those kind of things in there too. And having a great supplement regimen is going to be key, and staying consistent with that, right? Getting the right type of, you know, proteins. And I know you have amazing supplements in there too. So like taking advantage of that. And if you don't have time to eat a meal, right? Having whole food is obviously going to be super important and going to be key. But if you don't have time, instead of just skipping food and not eating anything, get yourself a protein shake, right? Have a meal replacement shake. Have a protein bar handy, so that way you're always feeding your body, especially if you're, you know, any type of a performance athlete, or if you don't want to get super hungry, you don't want to have these crashes, you don't want to have the ebbs and flows. Because what happens when we don't eat, right? Well, for some of us, we get hangry, and sometimes like you go too long without eating enough calories throughout the day, your body says, hey, you haven't eaten for a long time. And then you start to have all these like nighttime munchies and things like that. And then you go for the wrong type of foods. You go for fast acting, you know, high sugar content foods. And then, you know, you're like, damn, why did I eat a whole thing of Ben and Jerry's tonight? Like I wasn't even craving that. So by having like more sustainable, you know, meals throughout the day and having supplements on hand and all those kind of things, you can fill in the gaps where your nutrition is deficient.
What are your thoughts about hydrolyzed protein and in terms of the absorption and using hydrolyzed protein?
Oh, I love it. I love hydrolyzed protein. Like, you know, obviously, you know, the microfilters out a lot of the lactose and a lot of the impurities and all those kind of things in there too. You know, if you're on a budget, you know, and you're like, you know, in college and you're just like, you know, it may not be the best fit for you financially, right? Because you want to go with something that's going to be a little bit more simpler if you're not really worried about having some extra carbs and fat and lactose and stuff in there too. Like me, if I have much lactose in my diet, my stomach is tore up. It starts getting bloated, and I feel like that whole system in the hydrolyzed way, just like, oh, it just goes in super smooth. I don't have to worry about any gas, any bloating, anything like that. So I love the hydrolyzed protein.
Great. And what would be like your standard like pre-workout meal? Like what would that look like on a regular basis, let's say?
Yeah, so I like to have like a moderate glycemic index type of carbohydrate in there too. So it could be something like, you know, brown rice, something in there too, where it's, you know, not super low glycemic, where it won't break down in time, but it's fast enough where it will, but it's not so much where it'll give me like a huge insulin spike or anything like that, make me feel tired. So brown rice, and like having, you know, sometimes I'll just do it with a protein shake, to be completely honest. I probably have way too many protein shakes throughout the day. And I should be getting probably more whole protein, but I'm working throughout the day, and I just want something that's quick, that's efficient, that's easy, that'll, you know, fuel my digestion in there too. So, you know, if I can do like a lean, you know, chicken breast or something like that to go along with it, then that would be great. But if not, I'll literally have my whey protein and then maybe even some cereal, but it'll be like a healthy cereal, you know, or a brown rice or a quinoa or something like that.
Have you tried any of the Nutrabolics products? I'm just curious.
I have not yet, in there too, but I need to. I was looking over your whole, I was like, holy, wow. You got some amazing supplements. So definitely I'm going to be ordering some, in there for sure. And I was blown away. Even the protein bars that you guys have, I was like, wow, I didn't even know the whole variety that you guys had, man.
Yeah. Thank you.
I think I've seen you guys when I would go to the expos and those kind of things in there too, but then we never got a chance to connect or anything like that. So, but yeah, I'll be definitely I'm going to give the protein bars a try. I'm going to be giving your hydrolyzed whey a shot. I see some different aminos in there too. I don't like super hardcore pre-workouts where it's just like too much caffeine, because I get too much of a crash towards the end of the day, and I need to stay kind of like focused throughout the day. So
Mhm.
I'll be looking for something that has maybe amino acids, some branch chains, and then maybe something that has like a little bit more of a mild caffeine kick inside there too.
Nice. I want to ask you, just kind of slightly off topic, but what would be, if you had to recommend a book, what would be a book that you would recommend to people out there? What's a really good book that you've read?
Oh man, I have read this one book. It's called The Online Success Blueprint. It's
Ooh.
amazing. I just kidding. That's a little self plug, you guys. I just have to throw that in. It just depends what you're looking for. Like if you're looking for nutrition, the glycemic, I think it's called the glycemic revolution, is really really good. So you're kind of learning all about the glycemic index and breaking down the different types of carbs in there. There's macrobolic nutrition. There's man, there's so many. Like if I open up my cabinets up here, I have a
Mm,
bunch of really really good books that I can kind of pull from.
mm,
Um, and back in the day, there was one called the Pre-Contest Bible. That's because I was like competing and so forth, and it would have like all the IFBB pros, what they would eat throughout the day, what their post-workout fuel is, like everything that they would do in there too. So I used to do that if you're at a contest prep level, but if you're not, then definitely starting with it's called the Glucose Revolution. That
mm,
would be one that I would start with.
Is there anybody out there who motivates you, like, or anybody that you aspire to be or look up to per se?
Um, it's not so much where I like aspire to be. There used to be, right? There used to be several in there too. Um, I'm kind of a fan of like Dwayne Johnson, The Rock. I just like how, he's always taken really good care of himself. He's in the different roles, and now he has a whole different scene where he's not trying to be like super big action star anymore, but now he's like lean. He's actually trim and those kind of things in there, man. Like The Rock is one that I would love to meet. I would love to jam with that dude. Batista's kind of falling in that too. I've seen him in a couple roles, and I forget the last movie that he was in. He's just like a little bit more trimmer and kind of tapered down a little bit. I think it was the one with him and Jason Momoa
Mm,
in there too. But like The Rock has been that dude. I've met Arnold several times. Arnold is always great. Like I love that dude. Super cool.
mm,
Um, Charles Glass is a friend of mine too because we were both on the same team, with the sponsorship and so forth. So we got a chance to really get a chance to know each other. So he's always been one that's motivated me because he's taken the training game to a very very high level, as you guys know. Um, and those would be probably The Rock would be my number one guy I'd want to meet. If I could just meet one dude and just jam with for a certain amount of time, that would be the dude right there.
mm. And do you have any questions for myself or anything else you wanted to talk about before we wrap up today?
Man, I mean, obviously I'll be looking over your whole supplement line because I want to learn more in there. And I was just looking over like some of the recipes and things that you were having in there and some of the stuff that people were posting. So that's going to be the main thing. Um, Tell me a little bit about Nutrabolics, man, and we can share this with the rest of the people. Like, what got you started? Why did you help, you know, start this company?
Yeah, well, I was working at health food retailer. I was about 19 years old, and I had different sales reps coming in presenting me different products, and I'll be completely candid. Some of them knew their stuff, but some of them not so much. And I would see them rolling up in these really nice cars, and I saw sort of like an opportunity. I'm like, well, these guys are like, sometimes they'd be telling me things, and I just read a whole like 6 pages on a certain ingredient, and I asked them about it, and they had no idea what I was even talking about, and it was in their products. So
Wow.
I saw this sort of opportunity where I was like, well, if these guys are, you know, kind of in my mind, I'm only 19, successful, rolling a BMW, this and that, coming in to sell me products. I'm like, well, why couldn't I do this? Because I was really passionate. I would read this supplement encyclopedia from like literally from front to back, and I would highlight the whole freaking book. So like if you saw that supplement encyclopedia, it was like, I don't know, I was just really drawn to learning about supplements, and then I became the number one salesman. And what happened is that old friend of mine from high school, he came in one day and he was working actually across the street from the nutrition store at a tuxedo place, and he wanted a job, and we needed a salesperson, so we hired him. and I trained him, and he became the number one salesman. He took my spot, right? And
Wow.
I was like, wow, like, bro, like you, like, you know, and I was like, okay, well, so then in my mind, I'm like, whoa, if the two of us got together, we could, you know, probably, you know, take, do some damage, you know, like, so we kind of, you know, chit chatted, and, you know, we put together some products, and we hit the road, and it was a hard go for a while, but, you know, I think that, you know, we stuck with it, and we tried to really just put out the best products that we could find, and try to really just set the notch really high with the innovation, with the taste. And, you know, we just tried to deliver the best service that we could, right? I mean, at the end of the day, that was sort of our thing, is like really just go above and beyond whenever possible, you know? So, and yeah, that's kind of the story in a nutshell. I mean, we started at 19, you know, I'm now 44. I'm still doing it, right? 24 years later, right? It's been, you know, quite the journey. But the brand as a whole now is at, you know, to be honest with you, is probably at the highest peak we've ever been. And it's great, you know, knock on wood, you know, we made it through COVID, and we made it
Yeah.
through many different, you know, things that have been going on in the world. And, you know, we're still rocking and rolling and trying to, you know, stay ahead of the curve. And things are on the up and up. And yeah, that's my story.
Nice, 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 nice. So, where do you see yourself in the next 2 years from now, like bringing Nutrabolics?
Well, I think the big thing for us is we're going to be celebrating our 25 years. So this is a big milestone for us, right? You know, we want to do that right. So that's a big focus for us. And then, you know, we got some products that actually are coming out that are very exciting. We've been working around the clock. I had a few sleepless nights, I'm not going to lie, recently trying to get these products moving. And we're starting to see, you know, some big movements, you know, because for us, I mean, for me especially, you know, I'm of the opinion that if when I give a sample to somebody, I don't want to have to ask you how it was. Like, I want you to say to me, wow. Like, if I have to be like, hey, how was that product? It's not good enough, you know? So we set
Mm,
that wow standard, right? So it's like, you know, I got products that we could have launched already, but they were just good. And good isn't going to get repeat buyers for me. You know, I like good is not good enough. You know, it needs to be wow. And I think that's my standard, is like when people try our protein, the HydroPure, I'll be honest with you, like it's wow. Like where we don't launch the flavor. Like I'm literally like, if I'm not blown away and I'm not like, wow, like even just with water, right? Then it's like, no, we're gonna keep working it. And you know, this is what we've been working on, is some products that I think are gonna wow, you know, the industry. And I am hoping that we can get those out real soon. And we're gonna be making some announcements. But you know, over the next 2 years, I think that's really the main focus, is getting these innovations out, the 25-year anniversary, and just, you know, keep going, keep pushing the envelope and enjoying the ride, you know, connecting with people like yourself, you know, and just constantly learning. You know, I'm a big believer in, you know, knowledge is power, right? So it's like I want to just keep learning every single day. The more I can learn, the more value I can add, right? That's
yeah.
my motto, right? So yeah, there's my sort of, you know, play by play.
I love it because I know it's hard to combine both of those things because you can have great ingredients, but sometimes they taste like garbage, right? And then you
Mhm.
have things that taste amazing, but then you're like, you're like going through the ingredients, you're like, no, 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 no. But
Yeah.
to be able to combine those where they both have good ingredients that are freaking delicious tasting, like you've been able to put those pieces together are solving a very big problem in the market.
Mm.
So I love that, man. That's fantastic.
Well,
And I
some
got
of
to have
my,
you on.
yes,
What's that?
sir. No, I was gonna say, like, some of my flavors have taken 4 years. Like, I'm not even joking you, to launch. Like, I have this one flavor; it's my favorite flavor, and I haven't given up on it. We've been literally working on it for 4 years, and like, I'm
Wow.
not even joking around. Like, it's like taking that long because I can't put it into market, and I really want to launch it until it's like, wow, like people are like, holy smokes, like this is amazing. So sometimes, you know, with us, I mean, definitely you gotta have patience, right? Patience pays, right? Like it's like you want to look good, you gotta have patience. You want to build a global supplement brand, you gotta have patience, right? I think that's one of the big things that, you know, we bring to the table, is like we got to be patient with some of these products, you know, having that synergy. it does take time sometimes. You don't always get it right. Sometimes it's like, I could be looking at like 20 samples of a flavor, literally like ongoing. And like, we just keep it going until we perfect it, right? And so the system's been working, and we're just keep pressing the system and hoping, that we get lucky sometimes, because sometimes we do. And it's great when we do. I mean, recently, I think that especially with our hydro pure, I think all of our new flavors have just been like home runs, like out of the
Nice.
park. Yeah,
Yeah, I can't wait to try those bad boys. And
definitely.
then and then I wanted to say too, man, I got to have you on my podcast. So I have a
Mm,
podcast called the Fit Biz Accelerator. I'll have you
nice.
on. We can jam and also
Yeah,
get some people in there too and spread some love with your
yeah.
supplements and so forth. So
Send me the invite. We'll get it done for sure.
sounds
But
good.
listen, Tobias, thanks a lot for coming on Perform Podcast. We really appreciate you, bro.
Thanks for having me, man. This was a great time, and thanks everybody for having me.
All right, take care, man. Thanks.
Okay, you bet.